They didn't fire me. That would have made too much noise. Instead, they whispered a pay cut into my inbox. 3 lines, no signature, and just like that. The person who built the brain behind their empire was told she wasn't worth feeding. But that wasn't where it started. It started 6 months earlier, when I brought a prototype called EVA into a Tuesday meeting. Just an idea on paper. A vision of adaptive intelligence that could restructure logistics in real time, reduce waste, and forecast market behavior before competitors even blinked. I was Claudia Hart, 32, lead AI developer at Enritech, a mid-sized tech firm fighting for relevance. I wasn't flashy. I didn't speak in headlines, but I did speak in results. And EVA delivered. Within 10 weeks, our monthly churn dropped 22%. By month 3, the board was calling emergency expansion meetings. Enritech's valuation doubled in 2 quarters. Analysts called it the company's unexplainable golden age. Except it was explainable. I just wasn't part of the press release. While execs toasted champagne, I got a Slack message. Great work, Claudia. Also, can you help coordinate the team for Phase 2? No title change, no raise, just coordinate. I stared at it for a moment and typed, sure, happy to help. Then I clicked into the architecture for Phase 2. My architecture. I wasn't bitter. Not yet. Because deep down, I felt something else blooming. Quiet pride. No one else could have done what I did. No one else even understood how the model had adapted itself overnight to detect unstable variables in the shipping algorithm. I saw it happen. I guided it. I didn't need applause to know I was right. But I noticed something. Every win led to more silence. Every success, another unspoken expectation. And in that silence, something else began to take shape. A second idea. I didn't know it yet. But this was the moment I stopped working for Enritech and started preparing something beyond it. The first sign was the silence. Not the kind that fills a room after applause. No. That would have been a luxury. This was colder, like a door closing without a sound, like a light being turned off while you're still inside the room. I had just submitted EVA's 4th major optimization, a neural update that helped predict logistics slowdowns 5 days before any human analyst could. The system was outperforming itself, and I was feeding it lines of code like lullabies. That morning, I brewed my coffee and logged into the company dashboard as always. 8:04. Slack notifications blinked in the corner, most of them tagged with urgent by people who had no idea how deep the code ran. Then I saw it. An email, subject line, revised compensation terms. I clicked. 3 lines. Effective next pay cycle. Your base salary will be reduced to reflect internal role realignment. This change is non-negotiable. No further action is required. No explanation, no meeting, no context. Not even a name at the bottom, just a floating signature line, blank. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a glitch. Maybe someone hit send too early. Maybe it was meant for someone else. So I refreshed. Twice. But it was still there. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat there. The steam from my coffee had gone cold. The cursor on the screen blinked like it was waiting for me to do something. And I did. I didn't write back. I didn't forward the email to HR. I opened a separate window, a terminal, typed in a local IP, and accessed something Enritech didn't even know existed. EVA. While they were celebrating quarterly wins, I'd been building something quietly, something smarter, leaner, mine, not theirs, not under their servers or their firewalls. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not rage, not vengeance, not yet. Just the sting of being smallened, of realizing that no matter what I built, they saw me as replaceable, a cog in the very engine I had created. It's a strange thing to watch your own brilliance get packaged, sold, celebrated, while you're quietly pushed to the edge, But I didn't leave. Not yet. Instead, I looked at that blank signature line, then looked back at my code, and I whispered, not out loud, just to myself, "You have no idea what I'm capable of." Then I got back to work. Just, not for them. Not anymore. The email changed everything, but I didn't let it show. For the next few days, I walked the halls of Enritech like nothing had happened. I smiled in meetings, nodded during presentations, even congratulated Brian, a project manager who hadn't contributed a single line of code to EVA when he was recognized for operational success. No one knew I had been cut. That was the thing about quiet betrayals. They're only loud inside you. But I had already started building something they couldn't touch. Her name was EVA. 2, the original EVA, had been revolutionary, self-learning, modular, capable of restructuring neural weights on live datasets. But she was still bound by Enritech's infrastructure, their cloud, their rules, their access control. I built her because they paid me. I built her to prove something. EVA 2 was different. She lived on a decentralized private cluster I hosted from 3 encrypted drives at home. One was hidden in the casing of a broken printer, another inside an old Alexa speaker I gutted, the third I kept in my bag every day, disguised as a portable charger. No one had access, not even my assistant Julia, and she was the only person I trusted enough to share morning coffee with. Julia had once joked, "You've always got this haunted look when you're deep in code, like you're writing secrets instead of scripts." She wasn't wrong. EVA 2 wasn't just a copy. She was an evolution. Faster, leaner, more autonomous. She didn't just respond to queries. She anticipated them. I had embedded an intuition layer trained on 5 years of non-corporate data, including anonymized medical diagnostics, satellite shifts in climate models, and even behavioral patterns from anonymous forms. She didn't just learn, she watched. And unlike her predecessor, she didn't need permission to adapt. I spent weekends fine-tuning her feedback loop, building ethics constraints, and simulating business problems Enritech hadn't even imagined yet. But the most important feature? She recognized my voice. Literally. I had trained her with private vocal tokens, commands only I could trigger. No one else could initiate her core routines, and if anyone tried to duplicate the code. EVA set would automatically trigger a self-obfuscation cascade, breaking into thousands of unusable modules. Control wasn't a concept anymore. It was a reality I had architected, keystroke by keystroke, and the moment I finished compiling her logic tree. I sat back in my apartment, lights dimmed, blinds drawn, and exhaled for the first time in days. The weight of that email, the silence that followed, even the tension of pretending everything was fine at work, it all dissolved the second EVA. Sue spoke for the first time. "Hello, Claudia, I'm ready." Her voice was smooth, low, and calm, not robotic, not artificial, just certain. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel cut out of something. I felt like I was finally in control of everything that mattered. They could keep their titles. They could keep their boardroom applause. I had built something they would never see coming. And now, I waited. I wasn't planning to attend the leadership briefing that Friday. I'd been avoiding company-wide meetings for weeks, opting to work remotely or claim systems testing when needed. But this one was marked mandatory. New strategic vision from our incoming CEO. The invite said, CEO? That alone caught my attention. No internal buzz. No exec shuffle announcements. Just a quiet leadership change. I hadn't even heard whispers. And in Enritech, whispers usually traveled faster than emails. The meeting took place in the executive wing, a floor I rarely entered since the day EVA launched. My badge still worked, a small surprise. Maybe they hadn't decided how expendable I was yet. I stepped off the elevator and turned left toward the boardroom. As I passed by the CEO's new office, my eyes caught something that made my breath stop cold. The name on the door, Daniel Cross. No title needed. Just the name. Bold, centered, etched in brushed steel. My heart didn't just sink. It slammed into a memory. 6 years ago. I was 26, a junior AI researcher at a startup called Virion Dynamics. Small team. Ambitious goals. I had pitched a decentralized data training model to our CTO, a model that later inspired the foundations of EVA. The CTO had laughed, told me my idea was too idealistic. Too green, I fought back, gently but firmly, laying out my simulations and logic. That CTO was Daniel Cross. 1 week later, I was laid off during a restructuring phase. I still remember the email, short, cold, like the one I got at Enritech. But the moment burned itself into my mind, not because of the dismissal, but because of what happened right after. I had stepped into the elevator, holding the box with my nameplate and notebooks, and Daniel had entered right behind me. No words, just the silence of fluorescent lights and a long descent to the lobby. Right as the doors opened, he finally spoke. "Next time, Claudia, don't talk like you know more than your boss." He didn't even look at me, just walked away. I stood there, holding back tears, heat flushing through my face. It wasn't just humiliation, it was injustice, and it had stayed with me, dormant, buried under promotions, product launches, even success. Until now. Now that same man, the one who once erased me with a shrug, was back. Sitting at the helm of a company powered by the very kind of intelligence I had been punished for believing in. And he had cut my salary, not by mistake, not by policy, by choice. The pieces rearranged themselves with brutal clarity. Daniel had walked back into my life like a ghost dressed in business casual. But this time, he didn't know who he was dealing with. Because this time, I wasn't crying in an elevator. I was walking through his empire, holding the blueprint to burn it down, and for the first time in years, I smiled, not out of joy, out of precision. I didn't storm out, I didn't rage or rant or burn anything down. That's not how precision works. That's not how power speaks. Instead, I went home that Friday evening and poured myself a glass of water, sat on the edge of the couch, turned off all the lights, and stared at the monitor glowing on my kitchen counter, where EVA 2 pulsed in silence. Then I opened my private inbox. There was an old thread, 2 years old, from a recruiter at Miratech, Enritech's longest-standing rival. At the time, I had reached out with cautious hope, attaching a demo video of my first adaptive learning loop. Their reply had been polite but curt. "Impressive logic model, but we're seeking more seasoned architecture leadership. Keep innovating." That rejection had stung, not because I disagreed, but because I knew I was ahead of them. They just couldn't see it yet. Now, I didn't resend a demo. I sent a file named Proof of Concept, Real-Time Adaptivity in Live Business Environments. And below it, a single line of text. "The future you passed on is now fully functional. Would you like to see it work before your competitors do?" I expected a reply within days. It came within 30 minutes. "Can you meet tonight? Discrete location. We'll bring the CTO. You bring the algorithm." They were no longer cautious. They were hungry. I didn't tell anyone at Enritech, not even Julia. Instead, I told the office I was working remotely that weekend to finalize a custom diagnostic run. It wasn't a lie. I did run diagnostics, just not on their system. At 9:15 that evening, I walked into a dimly lit conference suite on the 42nd floor of the Grantwell Hotel. Waiting for me were 3 Miratech executives, their CTO, a security analyst, and an innovation director who couldn't stop tapping his pen on the table. They didn't speak at first. They just watched as I opened my laptop, initiated a local instance of EVA-2, and ran a scenario based on real-time inventory chaos and upstream supplier disruptions. In 62 seconds, EVA not only stabilized the model, she rerouted simulated traffic, forecasted demand spikes, and flagged 5 human-based inefficiencies no other system had ever caught. Silence. Then, "How soon can we integrate this?" the CTO asked. "That depends," I said calmly. "You didn't believe in me 2 years ago. Why now?" He blinked. "Because you just proved you're the future." I leaned back, locking eyes with all 3 of them. "This model doesn't come with a contract. It comes with conditions. If you want her, I'm not your employee. I'm your partner." They agreed, not because they were desperate, but because they understood. Enritech had used my mind. Miratech would amplify it, or they'd get nothing. I shook their hands, packed up my laptop, and left without looking back. As I stepped into the elevator, a quiet calm settled in my chest. It wasn't vengeance. It wasn't even satisfaction. It was preparation. Because this wasn't the strike. It was the setup. And when the strike came, it would be silent, clean, and irreversible. Monday morning came heavy with stillness. The kind of stillness that feels louder than noise. The office buzzed with the usual corporate choreography, half-hearted greetings, coffee-fueled conversations, interns carrying things they didn't understand. But in my corner cubicle, tucked away near the server access bay, something very different was unfolding. I had arrived earlier than usual, 7:22, long before Julia, long before the directors. Even the janitor had nodded at me with surprise. This wasn't a normal day. Today, I was activating the lockdown protocol. I powered on my workstation, scanned the retinal ID, and opened the internal control panel for EVA from the outside. It looked like I was prepping another update, but behind a shell program labeled Internal Cleanup Batch Norger 7, a secondary script waited. It was a kill switch, not for destruction, but for containment. Months ago, I had quietly embedded a clause deep inside EVA's learning framework. It required a biometric ping from me every 90 days, a silent handshake between creator and code. Without it, the system would not collapse. It would freeze, growth halted, learning disabled, adaptation locked, like a brilliant mind forced to relive the same day forever. No one else knew it existed, not even Miratech. It was the only part of EVA I hadn't documented, the one part that only I could awaken or bury. My hands trembled slightly as I typed the sequence, not from doubt, from the sheer weight of it. At exactly 7:41, I hit execute. The screen blinked once. Then a new interface unfolded, a digital countdown clock. 89 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and ticking. From this moment forward, Enritech had 90 days of intelligence left, unless they came back to me, which of course, they wouldn't, because they didn't know I had just pressed the quietest self-destruct button in corporate history. I leaned back, let out a slow breath, and reached into my drawer. There it was, the framed team photo from the early days of EVA's launch. Everyone smiling, me in the middle, awkwardly holding a prototype schematic like it meant something. Julia with a coffee. Brian leaning into my shoulder as if he had any idea what the model actually did. I stared at it for a moment. Then I gently placed it face down in the drawer and slid it shut. In its place, I pulled out a fresh sheet. The development roadmap for EVA-2, clean, sleek, focused. As I pinned it to the corkboard, Julia walked in. "Hey," she said. "You're in early. Everything okay?" I nodded, not turning. "Just tying up some loose ends." She smiled, walked past, and didn't ask more. She wouldn't. No one would. That was the point. At 9:05, Daniel Cross passed by my desk. He didn't stop, didn't say a word, just nodded. Once. A hollow gesture from a man who thought I was still a part of this place, but I wasn't. He had cut the cord. All I did was finish the severing, and as the clock ticked in the background, I felt it. Not regret, not revenge, but resolve. This wasn't war. It was departure, with precision. I didn't pack a box. I didn't take the farewell cupcakes, or write a polite exit email with a fake smile embedded in every line. There was no party, no closure, just silence, the kind I had come to master. It was my last official day at Enritech. Technically, I wasn't being terminated. Daniel had offered me a transition period after a sudden departmental restructure, a reshuffle. I called it a final insult, the corporate equivalent of being escorted to the door with a pat on the head. "Before you go," HR Director Lillian said as she slid a sleek folder across the table, "we just need your signature here, and here, sir." It was the standard NDA, non-disclosure, non-compete, non-retribution, 3 pages of carefully worded silencing. I read every line while she watched me like I might burst into flames. Then I signed it, because I already knew something Lillian didn't. Their NDA was built to contain noise, but I had learned that the most powerful retaliation wasn't loud. It was flawless silence. After our meeting, I returned to my desk one final time. Julia gave me a hug, unaware of the gravity underneath the surface. "Promise me you'll take a break," she whispered. "I promise," I said, and meant it, just not the kind of break she imagined. As soon as she left for lunch, I connected my private drive and ran one last terminal session on the mainframe. The system still recognized me as a Tier 1 developer. They hadn't revoked access yet. Big mistake. I navigated through the encrypted layers, bypassed 2 false flag protocols I'd built into the architecture months ago, and reached the core directory of EVA. No alarms, no resistance. She still responded to me, like a daughter who recognized only one voice in a crowd. Then, I typed, "Execute final Claudia sequence," the line only I could run. It wasn't loud, but it was final. It wasn't malicious code, no wipeout, no sabotage. It was a clean recursion loop, one that would subtly reroute all admin-level system dependencies away from Enritech's network over the next 48 hours. No red flags, no logs, just fading control. Quiet, steady, irreversible. Then, I deactivated my credentials, removed all biometric flags, and wiped the session history. The back door I once used? Gone. No trail. They wouldn't notice until the next major update failed to deploy. And by then, it would be too late. Before I walked out, I left one thing behind. A sticky note, plain, yellow, handwritten. The future was never yours to control. I placed it on the side of the monitor, just beneath the team photo that someone had pinned back up without asking. As I stepped into the elevator, I didn't feel rage or regret. I felt light. No title, no salary, no keycard. But every step I took was mine. I walked out not as someone who had been dismissed, but as someone who had outgrown the walls around her. Enritech thought they'd erased me quietly. They didn't know that silence was my strongest weapon. The email came on a Tuesday morning. Subject, press event, project integration announcement, confidential. Inside, a crisp note from Miratech's CTO, signed with a flourish. "Claudia, tomorrow. We go live. We'd be honored if you'd stand beside us on stage. You built this. The world deserves to know it." Kellen, I read it twice, then set it down beside my tea. I should have felt nervous or overwhelmed, but I didn't. I felt still. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't about applause. It was about vindication. EVA. 2. now officially renamed Project Claudia, was being unveiled as the central nervous system of Miratech's next-generation enterprise infrastructure, what Enritech had once feared. Miratech had chosen to embrace, and now they were preparing to reveal it to the world. The live stream was set to broadcast from San Francisco's Civic Innovation Hall, a sleek stage, giant LED wall, rows of seats filled with analysts, journalists, competitors, and yes, someone from Enritech would be watching. I didn't attend. Instead, I stayed home, barefoot, sipping jasmine tea in a sunlit apartment, the one I'd chosen with deliberate distance from the office towers that had once boxed me in. But I didn't stay silent. An hour before the event, I sent a message to Kellen with a single quote: "Real architects don't need spotlights. They need freedom." "Claudia," he replied with a simple, "respect." At 10 sharp, the broadcast began. Julia, now on special assignment with Miratech's innovation team, texted me a photo from backstage, a giant screen that read, "Project Claudia, designed by the mind that refused to be owned," when the system demo went live. The audience gasped. EVA 2 adapted instantly to simulated crises, reorganized logistical flows in seconds, and predicted customer behavior with near-perfect accuracy. It wasn't just performance, it was proof. Proof that the model they had once dismissed was now rewriting industry standards. Within an hour, headlines were everywhere. Miratech's new AI leaves competitors in the dust. Tech Daily, the woman behind the code, Claudia's silent rise. Wired Insight, one line, one legacy. Claudia declines the spotlight with grace. Market Pulse, by afternoon. Miratech's stock had jumped 17%. Enritech's dropped by 8%. Their shareholders began asking questions. Their engineers began resigning. And I smiled, not because I wanted revenge, but because I had chosen my terms and watched the world respect them. I didn't need a stage. I had already taken the lead. By Thursday morning, the cracks were no longer invisible. A message appeared in Enritech's internal engineering Slack at 6:08. "We're seeing delays in core prediction models. Can someone check module Delta 4? By 7:30. The delays turned into data freezes. Customer behavior predictions were looping back to outdated patterns. Optimization engines stalled mid-process. The system wasn't crashing, but it wasn't moving forward either. It was stuck. Exactly as I'd planned. The lockdown protocol I'd embedded months earlier was doing its job, quietly, irreversibly, every 24 hours. One more subsystem entered maintenance hold, locking out further updates and freezing live adaptation. Enritech's AI, once the crown jewel of their empire, was now eating itself in slow motion, and they had no idea why. By mid-morning, a whisper reached me from Julia, who'd kept in casual contact through a shared reading list we both contributed to anonymously. Her message came through as a note in a collaborative document. "Rumor, they tried to clone the model. Core functions corrupted. Engineers are panicking." Of course they were. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that I had wrapped the model in a recursive verification loop. Every time it was copied without the master key, my voice, my biometric ping, it initiated a silent decay. Not immediate destruction, just erosion, line by line, precision over drama. By 3:15 in the afternoon, a second memo leaked to a few investors. Enritech's AI division is undergoing unexpected restructuring. Leadership is reviewing performance inconsistencies. Performance inconsistencies? That's corporate speak for, "We've lost control of the thing that made us matter." By 5:42. It was trending. Dead Code Empire, Silent Architect, Enritech Fall. People started asking the real questions. Why wasn't Claudia credited? What really happened between her and Daniel Cross? Why did Miratech soar the same week Enritech stalled? And just like that, the silence they once used to erase me turned against them. There were no sirens, no fire, just a slow, majestic unraveling, like watching an empire of sand dissolve in the tide. The same tide they'd built their future on. Without realizing, the shore belonged to me. From my apartment window, I could see their tower across the city. Lit floors, quiet panic. I didn't toast. I didn't dance. I just sat quietly, fingers wrapped around a cup of tea, and let it steep a little longer than usual. Justice doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes, it arrives in the form of silence, one they can't code their way out of. The summit was held in a glass-draped convention center, overlooking the bay, polished floors, endless panels, and swarms of media outlets chasing the next great headline in artificial intelligence. I wasn't scheduled to speak, but I was on the list, not under developer or consultant, under strategic partner, Miratech, Project Claudia. 2 weeks earlier, they'd offered me a formal contract, Chief AI Officer, impressive salary, full benefits, office view, a corner one. I declined, instead. I negotiated strategic autonomy, the right to operate independently, to choose collaborators, to license technology rather than give it away. I didn't want to be hired. I wanted to build. Miratech said yes, because now they knew my value, and more importantly, I did too. That morning, walking into the summit, I wore no badge, no title on my lapel, just confidence stitched into the seams of a charcoal blazer, and the quiet assurance of someone who no longer needed anyone's permission to take up space. The panels passed in a blur, startups boasting breakthroughs, veterans clinging to legacy systems wrapped in buzzwords. And then came the final keynote, the future of ethical intelligence. And Daniel Cross. His name still echoed, but not as loudly as it used to. I stayed near the back, beside a display booth on AI and healthcare. When I saw him walking out of the green room toward the stage, he stopped when he saw me. The recognition hit him like a skipped beat. His mouth parted slightly, maybe to speak, maybe to defend. I didn't give him the chance. I smiled, calm, unshaken. Still think I'm too green? He blinked, but said nothing. And then the cameras turned, unintentionally capturing our moment as a tech journalist passed by. A mic lifted, a flash blinked. I looked straight into the lens. If you've ever been told you're replaceable, remember this: machines can replicate functions, but not fire. And mine never went out. The image, his stunned expression beside my clarity, went viral before the panel even ended. I walked away from that summit not with applause behind me, but with open roads ahead. I wasn't climbing ladders anymore. I was drawing maps. No more waiting to be chosen. I had chosen myself. If this story lit a fire in you, the quiet kind that doesn't fade, drop a comment below. Have you ever outgrown a space that couldn't see your worth? Hit the like button if you believe in reclaiming your power. Subscribe to the channel, because this isn't the last story where silence turns into strength. And remember, what they underestimate often becomes unstoppable.